Welcome back to the boat cheat. Sometimes you have to manoeuvre a boat when you'd really rather not, and on those occasions the more cheats you have to choose from, the better. This cheat is one that we used to leave a lovely little harbour on the Greek island of Kalamos in quite challenging conditions. When we arrived, the unofficial harbour master, George, got us to anchor stern to, very close to a beautiful classic wooden yacht about half our size, because a flotilla would be arriving which would need as much space as we could leave for them. Sure enough, there was soon a flotilla of small yachts to our starboard side, all along the harbour wall. Kalamos was a lovely night stop, and George's little restaurant did a lot of well-deserved business. The next morning we were surprised that the wind was blowing straight across the harbour at 25 gusting 30 knots, contrary to the area forecast, which was for light breezes. The windage on the side of a Leopard 44 is enormous, so the forces this wind would create pushing us onto our neighbour would be huge. The skipper of the wooden boat on our lee, who was between us and another Leopard 44 catamaran, like meat in a sandwich, was clearly concerned about what would happen when we left. We reassured him that we would make sure his lovely old boat would not be squashed when we came to leave, but what could we do to keep our promise and still get our day's sailing in? Luckily, the flotilla lead skipper confirmed that they had experienced this local effect before and that they were planning to leave and would use their dinghies as tugs to help their flotilla crews get off the dock in one piece. The plan we came up with required that we drink coffee and watch their wacky races exploits as they battled their way off the quayside, which they did with varying degrees of skill but uniform entertainment value, and thanks to the heroics of the young men in the dinghies, no damage, injury or embarrassment resulted. While drinking coffee and watching the show, we prepared for our turn on stage with a nervous audience of one waiting anxiously on the classic boat to our port side. As the last couple of flotilla yachts were leaving, we invited the skipper of the classic yacht to join our brief, which he did with barely concealed relief and obvious anticipation. He would soon hear that he was to be a key part of our plan to protect his little wooden beauty from our lumbering hulk and the serious harm our windage could cause her. As we briefed the plan, the stress in his body dissolved, and he developed a gentle, contented grin, which made it quite unnecessary to ask if he had any concerns or questions. We started by joining our two longest lines together to make a very long line, and then the engines were started. Next, we let go the leeward stern line and took it across to the ring where the windward stern line was attached, where it was looped through and taken back to the winch, so the boat's stern could be hauled a couple of precious feet away from our neighbour. We then took the long line from our mid-cleat, one of the most useful pieces of deck hardware on a boat if you ask me, to a large bollard about 25 metres up the quayside. Our enlisted neighbour hauled the line tight, took a couple of turns around the bollard and manned the line ready for our departure. The stern lines were then let go and recovered. The crew on the windlass took up the slack, and then the leeward port engine was used to move the boat forward slowly, moving upwind on the arc of the long line on the bollard to windward. Our helpful neighbour let the line go from the bollard, and the crew recovered it just as quickly as they could, while the starboard engine, being in neutral, removed the risk of the line being fouled to its prop. The windlass crew continued to recover the anchor as we motored forward on port engine. Asymmetric thrust from the leeward engine, combined with leeward rudder to point the bow towards the anchor, moved the stern further from the boats to leeward. No stress for us, and more importantly, a happy neighbour who was always certain his boat would be safe. This is not a cheat you'll use often, but in both motorboats and sailing yachts there are times when this technique is a real godsend. Hope you found that useful, or at least enjoyable. To help us make more boat cheat films, please click the like button, click subscribe and click that bell icon so you get notified of our next film. See you again soon on the boat tube.